Hello, everybody. It's 7:30. So you know what that means? It's time for FTB Sports. Hello, everybody. Yes, game week 1 has finished. There's been some good results, some strange results, and some very disappointing results. I'm joined today by Matty and Ian. Matty, how are you, mate?
I'm all good, thanks. Colm, how are you?
I've been better. I'm wearing blue because that's how I feel about the weekend. So, Ian, how are you, mate?
Yep, I am. As I said earlier, over the blue moon. I thought it was a thoroughly entertaining weekend, and I watched a lot of football.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of football. Yeah, obviously you joined me, didn't you, in the chat for the City game?
Yeah, I actually piled into the live chat of the United game as well. I just couldn't help myself.
Unfortunately, I missed the United game because I was playing football, so I had to watch all the highlights on Match of the Day, and I kind of wish I didn't. To be fair, I just want to say hello to Solo. Big up, Solo. How are you doing? Hope you're doing well.
Hi, Errol.
So,
Big up, Soda.
today, guys, it's going to be a nice, easy one. We're just going to talk about, obviously, the weekend fixtures. So we've got all the fixtures here, and I think we'll start from the top and work our way down. I believe you was at the Palace game, weren't you, Ian?
I did. I've lived in London for about 20 years, and about 12 years ago, I'd watched City with the away games in London continuously, but it wasn't enough for a guy who likes football like me. And I'd been to Fulham quite a few times, watched them with Rick, but I started to watch Palace with my mate Ed, and there's another really good mate Dave, and another good mate Ali. And that was 10 years ago. And then I got a season ticket because one came up right next to them. And it was while I was working really hard. It was my weekly release to go and watch Palace. And it was like going back to the Kipax days of Main Road. Wonderful atmosphere, a ground that is not plush, but raucous. So it was, I'm going to say it was a little bit more about, having loads of beers with 4 really good friends before the game, during the game, after the game. And what I also took along was I managed to get a ticket for Ollie, who does quite a few of the shows. He's an Arsenal fan, but he really behaved himself well in the Palace end because we're in the Homesdale end next to the Ultras. And I think he really enjoyed and loved the atmosphere, so it was good. In terms of the games, I've heard a lot about Arsenal were great. They look like, what did I hear today? I can't remember. They look like Barcelona in the 90s or 80s. And I just thought, they were really good, Arsenal, for the first 15 or 20 minutes. Then they were strong and solid till half time. But in the second half of the game, Palace, I thought, outplayed Arsenal, but did not look lethal. It's one of those games where Palace had a couple of chances and just didn't take them. And it might have been a different story. Forget the second goal. Palace were pushing by that stage and it was a bit fluky. But I'd give, out of 10, I thought Arsenal were 8 and Palace were 5 or 6. But the atmosphere was wonderful.
Matty, I don't know whether you watched the game or not. Judging by statistics, like match stats, a lot of it went in favour of Palace. Should they be a little bit disappointed?
There should be, but I believe I said before, I think Palace need that clinical number 9 up top. They've got a very good squad there, and they've got a good coach in Patrick, but they're just missing that finisher up front who can score the goals. And looking at Arsenal, they should be worried if they don't win a game like that with how much Arteta spent on that squad. They have to be winning them games. No, I think Arsenal flattered to deceive slightly in the game. They was good, but they weren't great. But Palace definitely need that finisher up top. And I don't see they're in any relegation trouble. I think they're too good for that. But I don't see him moving on to that next level up until they get someone who can score 15 to 20 goals a season. That's what they're missing.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I mean, obviously, Arsenal winning 2-0, Martinelli scoring the first goal of the game. But I've heard a lot of things. Obviously, Ian, like you said, you were at the game, so you might be able to tell me. I've heard a lot of things from Arsenal fans stating that the best player on the pitch was Zinchenko.
I think it's wishful thinking, and also he didn't have to do that much defending. What you've got is Palace are so one-sided; they go all the way down the left, with Wilf leading the left-hand line. I'd like to have seen Zinchenko playing against Wilf. He had nothing. I mean, Klein, he's a solid fullback, but I don't imagine that any fullback would be quaking their boots with Nathaniel Klein at his 32, 33 going down that side. What Palace miss is Elise on that right-hand side who's injured. And Essie was trying to play far more in the middle. So I have no idea what the stats said, but I've got a feeling 90% of the attacks for Palace were totally down that left-hand side. So Zinchenko had the field to himself. And I have to say, when he headed the ball back across, there wasn't a Palace defender on him at all, nowhere. That was quite embarrassing, but that wasn't because Zinchenko did anything good. It was that Palace left him, where actually it was probably Decore to drop back, or Eze to drop back rather than the fullback job to pick him up, but whoever. No, actually Ayew probably on that right. But I thought Gabriel Jesus played really well for that first 20 minutes. He knitted it all together. And what I also would say is, and we can talk about Chelsea later, but when you watch Sterling, Zinchenko, and Gabriel Jesus in somebody else's team, you realise how technically really, really good they are compared with the other players.
Okay. Well, speaking about Jesus, obviously didn't get a goal in that game. I did the watch along. He looked very lively. He looked like he was hungry. Is it just time for? Is it him just trying to find a way to settle in, Matty, or do you think it's the system that's not fitting?
I just think it's settling in. Tom, once he settles into that team, he'll come good. He's a good all-round striker. He's not world class, but he's a good 15 to 20 goal a season striker. But it's good. It takes time to fit in as well as that. But I know people talk about pre-season. I generally don't look at pre-season too much. It's pre-season is different to the actual season because in the season the intensity is up, and that pre-season is more about just match fitness, and you also have to look at the level in quality that you're actually facing. I think in pre-season he scored, 3 or 4 goals?
No more. He scored 6 or 7.
Yeah. I think he scored a hat-trick in one game against the German team, if I'm not mistaken.
Matty, I agree with you. I think he's got a really good first touch. He works hard, but his major asset is he turns well with the ball.
Yeah.
And creates space. So, I put a tick for Gabriel Jesus. I think he's a good signing for Arsenal, will be worth the money. He's the right age. I think he'll do well. But I still stand by the Zinchenko at left back. I think he'll make mistakes. But to be fair, it was Tierney who came on, wasn't it? And started to look good. I think Tierney is a very, very good left back. So it could well be that Zinchenko does play a utility role, filling in the other competitions, filling in if Tierney's injured, rather than securing that left back. And if I was an Arsenal fan, that's what I'd hope for.
Very interesting. We'll move down a game. Obviously, one of the shocks of over the weekend in game week 1. I did the watch along for this, and I wasn't expecting to see that scoreline. Fulham 2, Liverpool 2. Obviously, 2 goals from Mitrovic, trying to silence his critics, saying he's not a goal scorer in the Premier League. Darwin Núñez getting a goal on his Liverpool debut in the Premier League, and obviously Mohamed Salah doing what he does and scoring goals as well. Ian, a surprise result expected?
Yeah. I was talking to my mate Rick throughout it, and I've been to the cottage many times there. I thought Liverpool would thrash them. So did Rick, who's a Fulham fan. Fulham haven't really added to much strength from the Championship. I'll come on to it in a moment. Mitrovic, last time, looked abject in the Premier League compared with the Championship, and everyone labelled him a Championship striker. So yes, I was surprised, and I thought Liverpool were going to be better than that. I didn't watch. I only listened all the way up. From what I heard, Fulham's second goal was not a penalty, but it's about time Liverpool got the luck swinging the other way, because they always, throughout last season, tended to get the VAR and the lucky opportunities. But I kind of smiled, when Mitrovic. I saw the replay of the goal, and he absolutely slaughtered Trent Alexander-Arnold. Who I was listening to someone on Talk Sport, and they said when they were a fullback defending a situation like that, they would jump at that instant to block them, sometimes put it off. But he kind of stood there and let the attacker attack him. And he's not that big, Mitrovic, really.
No, he's not that big at all. But yeah, I mean, I'll be in a bit of a disagreement with you. I think it was a penalty for the second goal. I think he lured Van Dijk into it. He took the ball one way and knocked it away the other, and there were contact. I think it would knee-to-knee contact. It were a bit of a soft penalty. I'll agree there, but I think it was a penalty. Matty, obviously, 2-2, a very good result. We got to see Darwin Núñez play. Has he seemed to pick up form? 'Cause, I remember quite a few people saying that during the pre-season, he didn't look like he were up for it. His touches were bad. He were a little bit all over the place.
He has picked up form, but I still don't rate him yet. I think he's had one good season at Benfica. You can't judge a player off one good season in the Portuguese league. He will score goals, though, because of the way Liverpool play. The crosses Trent puts in, the crosses Robson puts in, the way Diaz plays, the way Salah plays, they will create a lot of transition, so he will score goals from it. So, though he will score goals, I still don't think he's a good all-round player. He's simply got a good ammunition line supplying him. But as for the game itself, I thought Sharpelin had a fantastic game in that middle, and Liverpool, for how good they are, I still think they're a midfielder short of what they actually need. That Liverpool midfield, just wasn't quite on it. They just didn't click and play the way that we know they can play. But you've also got to give Fulham credit because they stopped it. And Sharpelin, I think he cost between 20 and 25 million, maybe 30 million. And that is a fantastic purchase for Fulham. I think he's a very underrated player. He was at Sporting Lisbon when they won the league a couple of years ago there. And that he's done consistently well at Sporting for the past few years, considering the team's got around him when he's been in the Champions League. And that is a fantastic acquisition. And Mitrovic, I have to say, although Mitrovic isn't the biggest of strikers, he is a physical presence. And I'm surprised the Liverpool defence weren't switched on when Trent was trying to defend against him at the back post. There's only ever going to be one winner out of them two, and that's going to be Mitrovic all day long. He's known as being a physical presence and a bit of a bully in the box. And you can't allow Trent to defend against someone like that. I'm surprised Van Dijk didn't come across quicker and cover him, or the other centre-back. I think it was Kanate, but whoever it was. Matic. That they made it far too easy, especially when that ball went in the box. Now, you need a centre-back in there. Against a player like Mitrovic, you need a proper physical centre-back because he's an old-fashioned centre-forward. Now, he's not one of these modern-day centre-forwards who's very technical. He's a bully, he's strong, he's physical.
There was a lot of chatter today about, the return of the classic centre-forward, whether it's Mitrovic, whether it's Haaland. whether it's Nunes at Liverpool, the return of the centre forward. Obviously, Harry Kane is always going to lead the line there, but I think it's kind of interesting.
It is very interesting. Like, just going off the back of what Matty said there, obviously, we saw Trent have that slight issue with the physicality of Mitrovic there. Is it down to the players on the pitch to turn around and say, right, I can see that you're struggling, he's very physical, I can see that you're struggling a little bit, let me take him off you? Or should that be Jurgen Klopp's order to him on the pitch?
I would look at someone like Van Dijk. Van Dijk's meant to be a leader on the pitch. Although he's not a captain, Henderson is. Van Dijk's still a leader, and he's still aware, and he kind of organises that defence and marshals it. So I'm surprised he didn't look at Mitrovic and go, right, I'm going to mark you all game. I'm not going to give you a sniff from any area of the pitch.
Yeah, true. Because you've only got one big striker for Fulham. We've got two big centre-backs for Liverpool. But I think Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's a fantastic fullback going forward. His crossing is just sensational. If I'm Jurgen Klopp, I'm just going to quietly take him back to the training ground and go through again and again and again. A striker, a bigger player coming from behind me, in a dead ball or a crossing situation, practice jumping, timing. Looking at the trajectory of the ball. At what time do you jump? At what time do you jump? Do you jump at the defender? Do you jump away from the defender? Do you just follow the ball? I think you just, that if that's his area of weakness, which people say it is. I mean, God, I'd take any fullback like with that area of weakness, with his ability at City. They just got to just iron out those wobbles, and then, if he has the ambition to lead the line for England. I mean, Walker is now 31, 32 years old. Trent Alexander-Arnold can make that position for for England for the best part of a decade, or at least for six years. But he's just got to get rid of that part. He's just got to practice that part of his game.
Indeed. I just want to say hello.
Any of the others in that position going forward. His crossing is better than Walker, better than any of them.
No, yeah, I do agree. He's got a very good delivery. I just want to say hello to the Silver One. How are you doing, mate? He says, good evening, gentlemen. What a fine weekend it has been. It's been a fine weekend for some. And one of those teams it's been a fine weekend for is the promoted Cherries, Bournemouth. They beat Aston Villa 2-0. Goals from Lerma in the second minute of the game, and then Moore in the 80th minute of the game. I've watched the highlights of this game. It seemed like Bournemouth could be a little bit of a challenge for quite a lot of the mid-table teams this season. They seem very energetic, very physical. I don't know what your opinions are on that.
I was surprised. I think Steven Gerrard needs to get his shit together, because he's now into the third season at Villa. They've backed him with plenty of money. He's got some big name players and talented players in that team. They should have got a result at Bournemouth, a win, never mind a draw. And I think Aston Villa, if I remember, had quite a poor end to the season last season. And it's often when a team struggles in their first season, at the end of the season, they carry that into the next season. And I would say, the previous guy who's now at Norwich, David, name escapes me, but he was fired after he'd done incredibly well for Villa. So Mr. Gerrard, I think, needs to watch himself, because that's not a good result. That is a really poor result with his resources.
It is, I think so. Matty, are Villa lacking something? Is that the issue? I mean, I'm looking at the match stats. I mean, they had most of the possession. They had 15 shots, two of them was on target, just two. Is that the issue? Do Villa need a proper goal scorer, or is it deeper.
They've spent loads of money on goal scorers. Ings and
Watkins.
what's the lad? Who they got from Brentford?
Yeah, Watkins.
Watkins. I mean, they're fabulous players. Why the hell they're not playing well for Villa? I don't know.
I think it's just a bad result for Villa, and it's a bad start to the season for them. Will they come good? I think they will. I think give them 2-3 games, they'll come good. I think they might have just underestimated Bournemouth. A lot of teams, when they come up from the Championship, generally do get underestimated in the first couple of games. Maybe Liverpool done that with Fulham as well. I mean, take nothing away from Bournemouth. It's a fantastic performance by him. But normally you'd have like 1 or 2 teams come up from the Championship and they'll shock a few people. I remember Sheffield United when they come up, they shocked quite a few people as well. So you always get 1 or 2 teams from the Championship that just shock people. And what you have to remember is when they come up, they want to show that they belong in the Premier League. So they're going to up their game. And I think most established Premiership teams just look at them and I think it's kind of a routine win. But it's never, there's no such thing as a routine win, not in the Premiership.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm looking back at Villa's results, the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, obviously, including this 2-0 loss to Bournemouth. So they got beat by Liverpool 2-1. Then they drew with Palace, drew with Burnley, lost to City, and then obviously they had the friendly match with United that they drew 2-2, and then this 2-0 loss. So do we think it's a Gerrard problem? Is his tactics not sitting with the players, or?
I don't know. I didn't really see it. I just think with their resources, they should have done better. You know, you could argue they've got a better first 11 than United these days.
Well, you could argue it.
You could if you looked at it player for player. You know, I mean, Ten Hag has inherited the poorest first 11 in a long time for United, but Gerrard's got on paper what's a pretty good team.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. With Villa, Gerrard has to flip it around soon. I mean, he spent 27 million on the centre back from Sevilla, and he also brought in the lad from Marseille. So he has to start picking up results. But I think they'll be okay. I think next game they'll probably get a result.
Okay. Again, moving down, we've got Leeds United 2, Wolverhampton 1. Podence scoring for Wolves in the 6th minute. Looks like it was going to be a good day for them until Rodrigo pulled it back to 1-1, and then an own goal from Nuri gave Leeds United the points. So I watched the highlights in this one again. You know, I watch a lot of match. I watch match at day if I can't watch the games live, so I get a little feel of what the game is. Leeds looked like a team, well, a whole new team. Under obviously the new manager, I know they had him towards the back end of last season. He looks like he's really got what he wants across to the players, and the players are executing it very well.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Apparently, Jack Harrison played well.
Yeah, Jack Harrison did play really well all game. Obviously, they had those new American lads playing as well. And I think the striker that should have been given the goal, I think it were a bit dubious whether it were an own goal or his goal. He's going to cause problems. He's quick. He's very intelligent. He's going to cause problems to a lot of teams this season.
There's a lot of new players to settle in there.
Yeah.
I'm pleased for Leeds. Yeah, I don't want them to go down. You know, they're local to here. I think they're big-hearted. Their fans have suffered so badly. They deserve some joy. So I'm pleased for Leeds.
I don't see Leeds going down. I think they've got a tad bit too much quality compared to some teams in and around them. They're not a bad team. I think Wolves are missing just a forward. I know they've got Jimenez and they've got Huang Chi, I believe his name is, something like that.
Yeah.
But none of them are clinical forwards, are they? So you have to ask the question where the goal is coming from. Podence isn't a consistent goal scorer, neither is Neto. So I think that's their slight issue. Apart from that, they're a good all-round team. I expect them to be comfortable mid-table area.
I mean, I got laughed at, on a show when I got asked to put an outside team into a possible top 6, and I said Leeds, if they carry on doing what they're doing and playing what they're doing, they could be up there.
Oh, I can't see that. I can't see it. I really can't see it. I can't see it. I can't see it.
I think Leeds can finish around 10 to 16th, and I think that'd be a good season, especially when you consider how last season went for them, and they stayed up pretty much last day, skin of the teeth. I think that's an improvement. They're not going to jump from being where they finished last season to being top 6 this season. That's too big of a jump, and that you've got to be steady. If you finish within, say, the bottom 5 but stay up, your next step is to then say finish between 10 and 15th, and then like 10 to 5th, and that you've got to take it steady progress, because you've got to look at not only how you improve as a team, but the teams in and around you actually improve.
Yeah, no, I do understand. I understand what a lot of people are saying. I just had to pick. I was put on the spot. I had to pick a team. Leeds was the first one that came to my head. I don't live very far away from Leeds either, so it's probably just that. And with them being in the Premier League and a bit more established, and some signings that they've brought in, I just thought, why not give them a chance? Not, a bit of smiles, some smiles at Leeds United faces for once. So we've got, as well, underneath that game, Newcastle winning 2-0 against Nottingham Forest. Shaw and Wilson. I mean, I watched Shaw's goal. Good goal. I think Henderson will be a little bit disappointed about it as well. Shaw smashing it from a distance and it going in Henderson's near post. Newcastle are obviously on a rebuild here, and it looks like it's going to be something wonderful. Again, it's all highlights that I've seen this through as well. What do we think of Newcastle's chances this season? Is it going to be just, okay, let's finish mid-table this season, carry on the rebuild, or do you think, right, it's January, transfer window, after this one closes, we're going to spend a bit more money and then we're going to push for Europa League football, Conference League football? What do we think about Newcastle?
Yeah, I think they'll be in the top half, but not in the top 6. I think they've got a good manager. I think they're building a really good team with no show ponies. They're not wasting their money. They haven't blown anything on silly signings. They seem to be taking a very adult approach to the transfers, not prepared to pay over the odds, looking for players who work hard. They're not doing the nouveau riche approach to football that in the early days of City getting a bit of money when they signed players like Robinho, and City did the nouveau riche crap early on. Chelsea did it. Newcastle haven't, and I hope they don't. And I really respected the signings they made last January to keep them in that league. They made some really good buys, and they were unlucky with Trippier getting injured, because I thought he was a great purchase. So I think Newcastle will be good. I'm hoping Forest make a really decent fist of it. I think some of their signings again are good. I listened to Steve Cooper say that they had 6 loan players last season. So actually they had to sign at least 6 players to just stand still for what was, what did they finish in the Championship? 5th or something like that?
Yeah, I think it was 5th, yeah.
They just got in, they finished 5th with 6 loan players. So, obviously they need to build on that. I didn't see the game, but all the reports said that Forest weren't great and Newcastle were a distance better.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Matty, Forest have got Henderson in the net for him. A bit of a clanger.
Can I just add, Henderson needs to be very careful about what he says out there. because he's come out with a big bollocks statements, and everyone's laughing at him now. I mean, I thought that was a very, very unwise thing for a player who's still on the books at United to say. Very unwise, very stupid, because he's just going to be, he's still a player in development and hasn't proved anything. I think that's stupid things to say.
Yeah, well, obviously, a fellow United fan just like me, Henderson, like I said, had a bit of a clanger with Shaw's goal. I don't know whether you've seen it. Yeah. What's your thoughts on this?
On Henderson?
Yeah.
I think he needs to stop doing interviews and get back out on the training ground. He needs to work on his game. A couple of years ago, we've seen that he had the potential to being a good keeper. He had a fantastic nose ball at Sheffield United. And he got his head down. He concentrated on his football, and it was good for him. We've seen what a good keeper he was. Since then, I think his ego's blown out of proportion a tad bit too much, and he seems to think he's better than what he actually is. I think he needs to go back, get his head down again, start focusing. I think when he goes back to Man United, if he goes back, he needs to apologise to a lot of people for that interview. You can't be making interviews like that, whether you're unhappy with what a club's done or not. You just can't be doing it. It's not a good look. It's a bad reflection of you as a professional footballer and athlete, and it's a bad reflection of how you look at essentially the company you're working for, your employment place. It's a bad look. As for Forest, I think they'll struggle. They lost the goalkeeper that they had last season. I believe his name is Bamba. More importantly, they've lost the right back who's gone to Tottenham. Spence, his name. Yeah. He was a very influential player from down as a wing back for them. And also losing Garner. Garner was fantastic last season. If I'm not mistaken, Garner and Spence both made it into the championship team of the season last year. And they've lost them.
Garner's parent club?
What was that?
Who's Garner's parent club? Where's he gone back to?
Man U.
All right. Why don't they play?
I'm asking that question myself. I asked that question on the takeaway Friday night. Why can't Garner get a start ahead of McTominay? But that's for a different day. But when you lose your first choice goalkeeper and essentially two key players in your starting 11, and that it's going to have an effect. I think they need Jesse to come good. Whether he will, I'm not so sure. I think Forest will be one of the teams struggling this season. I possibly see them going down.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously,
I rate Steve Cooper. I hope not, because he's one of the great hopes for the future England manager.
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, I rate Steve Cooper. I think he's done a fantastic job, but I just don't think they've got the quality within the squad to stay up.
So would you both agree that Forest need to be a little bit more active in this transfer market? Obviously, like you said, they've got some loans in, they've got a few deals in as well, but they've lost quite a lot of key players.
I just think they need to settle them in.
They just need to settle the players in.
I think so.
Okay. So what we're saying then is give it a few more weeks, let him get us settled in, and then we might see some changes coming around for Forest.
Yeah, I think so. I when you look at that Leeds United result with so many new players, that's actually quite a good result.
That is very true. That is very true. Next game we've got is Tottenham versus Southampton. Tottenham fans, don't get too carried away. We've played one game. So, yes, your name's at the top of the league, but please don't get too carried away with yourselves. James Ward-Prowse opened up the scoring for Southampton, and then Tottenham decided to turn their game on and score 4 goals. Sessignon scored the first, Dyer, then Salisu own goal, and then Kulusevski, who's been an incredible player for him since he's come in. last season. Were it January transfer window they got him last season?
Yeah.
And he's been amazing, hasn't he, for him? Southampton have always been a bit of a team that take a bit of a drumming every now and again. But a 4-1 result on the first game of the season, should that be happening? Do you think there's something wrong there? Or do you think Conte is just bringing out his masterclass?
I think Tottenham are going to be there or thereabouts for the Premiership. And again, Southampton had a tough second half to the last season. If you remember, they were really up there in the first half of the season and then fell away. And again, I always worry about teams who've had a bad end to the previous season. There were some people calling for the manager's job. They stuck with him. I think Southampton will have a tough season.
Yeah.
Matty?
Southampton are in trouble. I look at that squad. I don't see where the goals are coming from. I'm surprised Ward-Prowse is still there. I'm surprised no teams looked at him going, I'll take a punt on him. I think he's a very good player.
Very good player.
Yeah, I think he's an underrated player. I think people look at him and they go, he's just a set piece merchant, because the majority of his goals and his all-round play, predominantly from like corners and free kicks and that. But I think he's an all-round very good player, a very underrated player. Tottenham, with how much they've invested in this squad and with Conte there, they've got to be looking at results like this. It's a great result for them, but you also have to look at how much Conte spent. He's brought in Kulusevski and is it Benatia?
Richarlison, 65 million.
Yeah, Kulusevski as well. You had the other midfielder that I brought in January along with Kulusevski.
They got, but they also got Kovacic on a free.
Yeah.
The 33-year-old super experienced guy who's been in Italy is meant to be really good.
Yeah.
Perisic. Back.
They also brought in Perisic, and as I just said about Spence, who was on loan at Nottingham Forest, they brought him in. So they brought in quite a few good players. Also Bissouma as well.
Yeah.
So with that level of investment and with Conte being the coach, I'm expecting him to go and get results like this against teams like Southampton. They have to be, and if they want to be taken seriously as a top 4 team, as dark horses for the title, they have to be winning games like this.
Well, I mean, looking at Southampton's next fixtures, the next game is against Leeds United at home. Then they've got Leicester away, and then they're playing Manchester United at home. It's a tough little run for them, really, if you look at it. I mean, they're playing Leeds United, who have got a new team, but like we're seeing there, 2-1 against Wolverhampton, they're not really pushovers. Leicester, who can always grab a couple of goals, and then Manchester United, who are in a bit of a transition period themselves. Can we see Southampton picking up points from those games?
Yeah, I see Southampton picking up points against Man United. Against Leicester, I think they'll do well to sneak a draw against Leicester and maybe even Leeds. I think they're slightly higher quality squads. Hassan Hootel, though, is a very good coach. I think he's an underrated coach. I think a lot of people looked at him because he's took 2 9-0 hammerings and that. And there's a lot of links to Ralph, and obviously we all saw what Ralph at Man United, what happened, and that. A lot of people put a lot of disrespect. I think Ralph's a very good coach, but he's not got much credit in the bank. And I look at that Southampton squad, there's not much there, so I don't expect him to get anything against Leeds or Leicester. I think both them squads got too much quality in there.
Interesting. We are very quickly running out of time. So I'm going to move on to the next game, and that's Everton 0, Chelsea 1. A Jorginho penalty in the 9th minute of added time in the first half. Obviously, there was quite a bad injury in this game, which is why it was quite a long period of added time. I watched this game as well.
Yeah, I watched it too.
What were your thoughts? I mean, to me, Chelsea didn't look like they were all ready for the new season. I don't know what your thoughts were. It looked a bit lackluster.
I thought Everton, I feel for Everton. You know, there's no other club in the Premier League who've had 3 really bad injuries, like they had to Andre Gomez last season. The season before it was Coleman, and now this one. So I desperately feel for Everton and the fans, and for Frank Lampard, who we heard Rich talk about the fans really like him. They think he's re-energized the club, and I thought they tried really hard. But to take an injury like that, if you're the rest of the team looking on, that's a tough one to come back from. Because you all love each other outside the game, unless you're in the United dressing room. But I imagine at Everton they're quite a tight little bunch. So I felt for them, and I thought they tried hard. I thought Gordon was great. I thought defensively they were pretty sound. Yeah, I felt for them. They had plenty of energy. The fans were pushing them on. Chelsea, Sterling looked quite nice. He really, he bursts forward. He takes people on. He's got almost a magnetic touch. He shields the ball really well. They are a team in transition, and obviously had all those troubles last year. But I felt sorry for Everton.
I mean, with this game, right, it's a story of 2 different teams and where they are. Obviously, Everton struggling to keep players fit. Obviously, they've got another injury out. They've got no striker, really. I mean, Gordon's not really a striker. He's being asked to play there. And on the other hand, Chelsea are deciding to sell Timo Werner, and they've got Sterling who can play in the middle, even though he's not really a striker either.
He's
so,
not.
I mean, what's your thoughts on the game in general?
Thoughts on the game. I think Chelsea will be happy with this win. I think for Chelsea, they're not done in the transfer window. They're looking at bringing in players. It's kind of a little rebuild, a mini squad overhaul, if you will. No, we know Chelsea need another centre back, a midfielder, and a forward. So they're definitely not done. I think they'll just look at it as it's 3 points in the bag. It's a solid start to the season. I don't think they'll care too much about the performance. I think it's just about points in the bag. I think once they've got the players in, they will, and I think they will get them in time. That's when you'll see Chelsea become more dangerous. As for Everton, I think there's a possible relegation on the cards. I just don't see where the goal's coming from. They've sold Richarlison, they've not replaced him. Calvert-Lewin is very injury prone. They've got a good squad, but is it enough to stay up, especially with Frank in charge? I don't think it is. I mean, Frank's not the sort of coach that can inspire you to get everything you've got, plus that tad bit more, which you need, especially when you're up against relegation. I think I'll possibly see Frank getting sacked and Everton getting relegated. Maybe Dyche takes over.
They're a nice club. I want them to do well, and the fans are wonderful. But I do worry about them. Like you,
I'd like them to do well, but I look at the internals. I look at who are their signings. Who are they looking to sign? I've not heard anything about replacement.
They've got this Anana guy that they're trying to get over the line at the moment, who's meant to be very good. There's one more. Who's the other signing they're trying to make Everton at the moment? Can't remember. I thought Ceausescu at the back is a really good signing for them. As is the other guy who came from Burnley, the guy on the wing.
Me.
So yes, they haven't got that much money, but then they're buying sensible players, a bit like the Newcastle ones. They're buying sensible players. I worried when they went out. When they bought. They got Van der Beek. I'd also say Dele Alli. What the hell has happened to him? But he looked terrible. But Koulibaly looked good for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Dele Alli, God knows what's happened to him. Looked terrible.
I look at Everton, and the biggest issue Everton have got, and I've said it about a couple of teams on the stream, it's who's going to score the goals. And they've sold Richarlison, and Calvert-Lewin spends more time in the injury room than he does out on the pitch. And they're a good team. I do like Everton, a bit of a soft spot for them, but the Premier League doesn't do soft spots for teams. It's if you ain't good enough, you're in trouble, and I think that's where Everton are. Anana's a good player, but is it enough to keep him up? I don't think it is. I just don't think it is. I think Everton are in serious trouble unless they can go out and get a good marksman. But there's not many available.
No, there's not a lot on the market. I mean, there's plenty of clubs looking for a striker, aren't there? I mean, Everton are playing Villa next week, and Tottenham have got Chelsea as well. So that should two very interesting games next week for them, for both the teams, really. So the next game obviously was Leicester City versus Brentford, a 2-2 draw in that game. Castagna and Dewsbury Hall. Dewsbury Hall's goal, what a peach of a goal that was. Like rocket. It's like he had a rocket strapped to his boot when he booted that ball. And then Brentford managing to get back into the game with Ivan Toney. And Brentford fans will know this. The love story that is Da Silva, obviously not so long ago, got told he was never going to be able to play football again because of his, I believe it was his hip injury that he had. And he comes on after working and he scores an equaliser to get him points. Good game. I mean, I've watched the highlights of that one again. It looked like a good game. The biggest thing I'm worried about for Leicester is there's a lot of teams looking at their players right now. Can they afford to lose them?
I don't really understand what's going on at Leicester, apart from obviously their football mad owner got killed in that helicopter accident, yeah? So in terms of who's inherited the club in his family, and it all sounds a bit complex, and whether they have the same passion for the club, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Tielemans is linked with Arsenal, Fofana is linked with Chelsea, and Maddison's linked with Newcastle. So they can't lose all three. If I was them, I'd cash out big time on Fofana and then try to replace and rebuild. But they're going to have to buy 2 or 3, 4 players. And they're not famous in the transfer market. They've never, when they got all that money from Kante and at the time when they left Leicester, they didn't spend it very well.
No, they didn't. Matty, your thoughts on this?
I think Brentford will be happy with the points. Showed great character to come back from 2-0 down. I think Leicester will be disappointed to let a 2-goal lead slip. What we will say for Leicester is, I've read numerous reports that it's out to buy now. So that leaves Brendan Rodgers in a tough position. He doesn't really want to lose any of his squad, but he can't reinforce it. And I think it's a squad that does need a few reinforcements. So I think if they can strike the right deal for, say, a Fofana and maybe Maddison, and then go out and buy some good young prospects and bring them in.
You don't want to lose Maddison. Maddison's amazing. You do not want to lose him. Don't lose him, Leicester.
He is, but if you recall, I think they picked up Maddison very cheap from Norwich City. Go out, try look for the next James Maddison or a player of similar capabilities who's got the potential as well, because it's a squad that needs reinforcing, and for reasons unknown, they're just not spending money. It's out to buy, so you've got to look at what are your marketable assets. Well, for Fofana, we know there's big interest in him from Chelsea, Maddison and Tielemans. Now Tielemans going to go cheap because he's only got a year left on his deal, and he wants to move on, so you're not going to get a lot of money for him. So you then have to look at, if you can sell Fofana and Maddison, get a combined 120, 130 from both, and then reinvest that in the squad in 3, 4 good young players, maybe from England, from the Championship, maybe from France, where they got Kante and Mahrez from, maybe a couple of unknowns from Germany. Or
bit late in the window for that. They could be in trouble.
They could be. But
I would hold on to Maddison with everything I had.
Would you let Fofana go, though?
Yeah, I think it's easier to replace a centre-back. I know it's a bit of a wild thing to say, than an incredibly gifted playmaker. Just as Palace have shown with Gueye, there's quite a few reserve centre-backs, youngish ones at some of the top clubs that they could plunder to fill that gap. But I wouldn't let Maddison go. No way. They'd be mad.
Interesting.
Anyway, moving on to the next game, eh?
Yeah. Let's move on to the next game. Manchester United 1, but Brighton and Hove Albion 2. A little story: when I was younger, I used to always think it was unfair when teams played Brighton and Hove Albion because I thought they were two separate teams. There you go, a little fun fact about me when I was younger. Man United losing 2-1. Man United not even scoring a goal. The own goal from McAllister was giving Man United. But Gross keeps doing what he's doing against Manchester United. What's that now? He's done 3 winning goals against Man United. There's only one player that's scored more winning goals against Man United than him. I mean, I don't know where to start with United. Fantastic result for Brighton. Obviously, last season they gave United a bit of a hammering as well. Ian, what's your thoughts? I mean, obviously, Brighton fans.
Credit to Brighton. Potter's a fantastic manager. I thought Danny Welbeck led the line really, really well and was pretty damn impressive. Their whole team approach was good. But, I've read the reports on United, but I watched the game and I'll be honest, I thought they were terrible. I thought that both fullbacks were just shocking. Defending, going forward, they were making mistake after mistake. So, I'm not going to get Maguire's back because I thought Maguire and the new guy, Martinez, is it?
Yeah.
I thought they were sound, but the fullbacks were shocking. And then I thought McTominay and Fred were pretty awful. Rashford was utterly anonymous. Sancho didn't get much of the ball, but looked okay with it. Same with Eriksen. So I think the two new guys were the better on the park. What else can I say about them? Just Fernandez just acts like a big girl's blouse all the time, huffing, puffing, as though it's not all his fault. It's like he's the son of Ronaldo emotionally. I thought they were. And actually, United were lucky because I tell you what, McTominay should have been sent off. That was a red card, no shadow of doubt in my book. And also there was a penalty for Brighton. So United were actually lucky it was only 2-1.
Before you go into it, Matty, just remember we're on a time limit. I know you could go all night talking about this awful performance from United, but I'll let you go.
I'll keep it short and sweet. New season, same old Man United. Anybody who was expecting Eric to come in and suddenly change this team, the way they play and everything else overnight, stop playing FIFA. I've seen a lot of fans on social media, we're going to do this, that and the other. Some of them sitting there saying we're going to score 6. I'm sitting there going, we're going into the season with McFreddy, midfield. We've still got Shaw and Dada as fullbacks. Just hope for just half-decent performances and maybe we can get a few points here and there, being realistic. Brighton, well-deserving of the win. McTominay, I'm sorry, he's got to go. I watched that tackle and I was sitting there and I was thinking, I hope that lad isn't going to be out for a long time, seriously injured, because he went right over the top. It's wild, it's reckless, it's lunging, it's not thinking, God, McTominay, what are you doing? What are you doing? I don't want to know what was going through his head when he done that. I mean, it's a scary thought that's going through his head when he's doing that. The way he's gone in, it's just gone in full of anger, no control over anything. And it's a very dangerous tackle. He should have been sent off. I hope he gets dropped for the next game. I seriously hope he gets dropped for the next game. Rashford, drop him to the bench. Put him on the bench. He doesn't deserve to start. Sure, he's got to go. I've heard people say Roberto Carlos. He ain't no Roberto Carlos, that's for sure. Dallo, flat as to deceive. Brighton, good for the win. Well deserved 3 points. Very good coach, very good team. I think they're a very underrated team as well.
Okay. Now,
why don't they put Shaw on a diet? I mean, he always looks overweight when he comes back from the summer. And seriously, he was lumbering around the park like a fat kid.
It's so well and good putting Shaw on a diet. Is he going to stick to it? I don't think he'd stick to it. I think Shaw's one of these. He needs constant competition. It's only when he's got competition that he seems to develop his A game, but then he only sustains it for so long. And being a Man U fan, I've heard all the stories about Roberto Carlos. I'm bored of hearing them now. They're not even funny anymore.
No, I agree. I 100% agree. We're going to wrap the show up very, very shortly. But before we do, we're going to talk about the champions of last season and the defending title holders, Manchester City. A very, very, very good 2-0 win against West Ham. Obviously, West Ham aren't a pushover team, but having Erling Haaland in your striking position for your team is always going to guarantee some points or another. And he obliged yesterday, didn't he, by scoring 2 goals? Ian, your thoughts on the opening game for City?
Painting a scene. West Ham had beaten City towards the latter end of last season with a couple of really, really good breakaway goals and deserved it. And City have hardly played anything in pre-season, and I thought looked a bit lackluster in the Charity Shield. So, going into this game, I was pretty damned worried. I thought it had all the signs of City getting off to a bad start, no pre-season, and West Ham being bloody good. And they've got something like 55,000 season ticket holders at West Ham now. It was a big crowd, big partisan West Ham crowd, lots of atmosphere. But I thought City played very well from the back. The star man, Rodri. Rodri is just so controlling of the game. He was brilliant throughout that. I actually thought there was many times when particularly Kevin De Bruyne and Gundogan looked ring rusty. I thought they looked rusty in their passes. There were passes going astray that don't usually go astray. And I was a little bit nervous. But, they played really solidly. They contained West Ham all the time. West Ham didn't really look like scoring. They seemed to have lost. It was very, very hot afternoon. So I don't know whether that City's control of the ball sapped all the energy out of West Ham. I've got a feeling it did. They played their containing game, which meant that West Ham were probably drained and couldn't do those lung-busting runs that they did to break away. But, hey, it was like a drama, a Shakespearean script ready and written for Alfie Haaland with his dad and his family watching. And, I mean, he was like a freight train. When the penalty happened, which is a total penalty, it was because of his size, his pace. He was like a freight train, and then he dispatched it well. And boy, that ball from Kevin De Bruyne, it's like when you see a Ronnie O'Sullivan pot a ball the whole length of the table to put it in the bottom pocket. It was all along the floor, probably a third of the pitch, measured to perfection. And then Haaland he looked like the real deal in front of goal. He didn't look like scoring. So I would say it's interesting because I love Raheem Sterling as a player, but to score a couple of goals, Raheem Sterling needs 10 good chances. Haaland doesn't seem to need that so far. So come away pleased with that, because that was the toughest of, I think, City's next few. City haven't got a top 6 team for the first 6-8 games. I think they're home to Bournemouth. The West Ham one was the toughest of the first few games, and without pre-season, I was very pleased.
Yeah. Matty, your thoughts on the game?
Routine win for me. I looked at that City team, looked at that West Ham team, and I thought City will get this. I expected Haaland to score. I expect Haaland to, if he stays in England long enough, I think he'll break a lot of goal scoring records. He's just that good of a player. I mean, he's physical, he's strong, he's quick, he knows where the net is, he knows how to score goals. He's a natural born goal scorer, and the way City play, the chances that they'll give him, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Foden, Grealish, Silva, Haaland's going to have a field day against a lot of teams. I fancy City for the title again this season, maybe even more. I think last season they created a lot of chances, but they didn't have that clinical number 9 who could put them away. They've now got that in Haaland. So that City team, as well as being the best team in England, has just gone up massive levels again. I don't see anyone getting close to them, being honest. I think Haaland will be the difference between actually winning the Champions League this season.
Do you agree with that, Ian?
Yeah, well, I'm not quite as confident. I'm not quite as confident as Matty. I never am because of all the decades that I've gone through. I'd say Declan. I do want to point out Declan Rice, though. He is a fantastic player, big, powerful. He's a Brian Robson type player, and actually, I think a Lampard, a Gerrard, he's everything about that. The top 6. If Chelsea do want to go out and spend a shed full of money, I remember when they bought Lampard out of West Ham for what was a lot of money at the time. They need to look no further than Declan Rice. I just think he's a phenomenon. But West Ham ain't going to part with him for less than about 150 million. You can get 2 Frankie de Jongs for that.
Yeah.
It just shows there isn't the value really, because he's got a long contract. The only time he'll come available really will be 3 years further down the road when his contract is running away. Until then, they'll ask for 150 million. And the other bit I want to say is there is, and I think it's probably right, there is a 150 million pound release clause for Haaland, I think, in about 2 years' time. And you two guys will probably remember when Ronaldo was at United and he'd had those first 3-4 awesome years, and you'd have thought he's going to stay at United forever. I hate Real Madrid. I hate them with a passion. But fundamentally, if they want a player, maybe apart from Mbappe, they will get that player. And I've got a real bad feeling a couple of years' time, they will pay 150 million quid and Haaland will go to Real Madrid. And he'll still only be 24 years old.
Well, quickly,
just like Ronaldo.
I did hear a story that Haaland does want to move about to quite a few different teams. Now, I don't know how true that is, but if that is the case, he'll probably go to Real Madrid 2, 3, maybe 4 years there. Then I see him going to Italy. But I think by that time, the young lad from Red Bull Salzburg, who's recently signed for Leipzig, the Slovakian, Šeško, I believe his name is, I think he'll be there. It might not be at Haaland's level in terms of what Haaland's accomplished from when he comes through to now, but I think he'll be close to it, and I think he'll be seen by Man City as the ideal replacement should Haaland move on, because he's a very similar type of player.
And maybe they'll spend it on Declan Rice.
Yeah. Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Yeah. I think Declan Rice is fantastic. I really do. Of all the Premier League players now, I would honestly say if I could have one more Premier League player at City, even though they've got 2 in his position already, I just think he's awesome. I'd bloody play him in front of that. I'd play him right through the middle. I'd buy him to replace De Bruyne. When De Bruyne gets too old, I'd get Declan Rice in there and change his position. He's Brian Robson. He's Brian Robson in another life.
Oh, there we go. We've gone through all the games. You've heard some wonderful comments by some wonderful people. Matty, tell the lovely people where we can find you.
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at Matthew3638039 or something like that. It's easier to find the Man United agenda in FTB Sports because I'm following them. That I'm on there. You can find me on the agenda on a Friday night, normally on the takeaway with Mr. B and Talk MU. And if you'll normally see me on the chat somewhere on the Man United agenda as well.
Yes. And Ian.
I just really like being a guest. I think I'm going to join Ollie's show later in the week. And hopefully, whether it's Palace or City, I get invited onto the United agenda, the Arsenal, and the Paxton Road. And that's enough. I'm just happy to guest every now and again.
Oh, lovely. It's been a pleasure having you both on the show. We will be back next week with another roundup. And until then, keep your ears to the ground, guys. Watch all the football you can.